I am angry in a way that I don't think I can quite articulate. I want you to try to imagine what it's like to be a trans person right now in 2022. So I'm gonna tell you about me and my girlfriend and what our lives are like. I'm a 30-year-old trans man. My girlfriend and I have been living together for 6 years, somewhere around there, and we're both trans. I'm starting to pass pretty consistently lately, and so I don't experience as many interpersonal transphobic incidents as she does. Either people assume that I'm a cis man who's very comically small, or they think I'm a butch lady, and either way, I don't get harassed for being trans. But my girlfriend, on the other hand, is afraid to go to the grocery store because there have been multiple incidents where she has been harassed by strangers for being trans. She doesn't say anything to anyone. She does not provoke anyone in any way. She's just a trans person existing in the world, and she experiences punishment for it. And that's already angering. That's already hard to deal with, that my girlfriend has trouble existing outside of the house. And so we have a lot of social support. We've surrounded ourselves with people who are also trans, or trans supportive at least. And we just had a Friendsgiving party at our local trans community. It was really fun. We played board games. We had good food. I baked pumpkin pies, and everyone loved them. And the next morning, we were going to have another small event called Coffee with Queers, just queer people in the community having some coffee together. And I didn't end up going, and part of the reason was because I woke up and saw the news that some queer people were shot at the Q Club. Club Q, that's what it was called. 2 of them were trans, and it happened on the Trans Day of Remembrance, or actually, it happened just a couple minutes before. Trans Day of Remembrance was that Sunday, November 20th, and the shooting started a couple minutes before midnight. Trans Day of Remembrance, for those of you who don't know, is a day that every year in November we set aside to honor our dead trans people who are no longer with us now because they've been killed for being trans. And, it just doesn't seem quite like a coincidence to me. The day that he chose to go into a gay bar and open fire on people, just a couple minutes before Trans Day of Remembrance. And yeah, the next morning I was supposed to wake up and have coffee with a lot of the cool queer people that I know. And part of the reason I didn't go is because I felt demoralized after waking up and seeing the news. It's the first thing that I see. People like him do what they do because they want us to be scared. That is the desired outcome. That is the goal. And 2 of the 5 people who were killed were trans. And I see these pictures of this trans man who was only 28. I'm 30. And I've gotten to live maybe 2 years longer than he has now. And he looks like a friend. He looks like just somebody that I might know. I don't know if something like that is going to happen to me or my girlfriend one day. And she's so scared every time she leaves the house. And I want so badly for that to be irrational. I want that to not be real. I want her fear to not be valid. But it's fucking valid. My girlfriend is pretty well my only family. A lot of trans people are estranged from their families, and I am one of them. My parents removed me from my health insurance. I am disabled. They removed me from their private health insurance during a pandemic because I am trans. They wanted to try to stop me from getting top surgery. I still got my top surgery. It was just $8,000 more expensive, which I didn't have the money. And I put it on a credit card because I needed that surgery for my survival and my well-being. And now I don't have a family. I mean, to be honest, they were bad people anyway. You know, some people look at their family tree and they can say, my great-grandpa was in this noble fight. He was a part of this thing, and I'm proud of him. It makes me feel pride in like where I came from, my background, my ancestors, etc. And I don't feel that. I don't get to experience that. What I experience is I learn about trans people historically, and those people, those were my family. Those are the people who made me. I feel a debt to them, and I feel a responsibility to them. And like trans people, those are my people. My mother-in-law is trans. My youngest sibling is trans. A great deal of my closest friends are trans, and I care very deeply about trans people. The online communities I am a part of are mostly comprised of trans people, and every day when I check my social media, do you know what the fuck I get to see when I scroll? I see minors who are saying, I'm trans, I live in Texas, I started HRT, and my school called CPS. Can I get taken away from my parents because of this? That's what I see when I wake up. Most of us are not safe in one way or another. If we leave the house, we are harassed. If we have a job, there's a fair chance that we could lose it just for being trans. And so we either have to conceal our transness by not transitioning or by desperately trying to pass as cis. There's a lot of pain in the trans community, and I think that most trans allies are aware of it. But even if you have an awareness of it, you don't know how bad it actually is. Moderating my own YouTube comment section is so hard. I don't want to see that shit. They know that I don't want to see that shit. Transphobes, I don't even know how they find my channel. But they do. It's like, what do? They go on YouTube and they type transgender, and then they search by like the most recent. Is that what they do to try to find microscopic trans channels to harass people with 300 subs on YouTube? I don't know what is going on with your brain. I think you need to go to therapy, honestly. You're a hateful fucking person. There are many of you. I actually deleted a channel that I had before this one. I had like 4,000 subscribers and my channel was growing. And when I came out as, at the time I thought it was non-binary, I started getting so much despicable shit thrown at me because I was coming out as trans. And now, tonight, in a few hours, I'm going to a vigil that my local LGBT organization is hosting, because out of the 5 people who were killed and the 25 others who were injured during this obviously politically motivated shooting, like I can't stop thinking about this trans guy who is so much like me. And it's so fucked. Even if your trans friends, your queer friends are putting on like a strong face and they seem like they're thriving and they're showing you the best parts of themselves and the best parts of their lives, we are fucking scared and angry every day. And the shooter, the alleged shooter, is the grandchild of a Republican politician who praised the January 6th riots. Can you believe it? Are you shocked? Are you surprised to learn about that? If you are, you're not paying attention. I see cis parents sometimes online asking for advice about like how to protect their trans child. And their idea of protection is often very misguided, because their idea of protection is usually sheltering. They want to hide their child away from the fact that they are the political scapegoat right now. They are the target of the Republicans. We're not the only ones, obviously. We're not the only minority group who is in the crosshairs, but they're obsessed with us. There was a Media Matters article about how many segments Fox News had published about trans people within a 2-month period, and at that time, this was in 2021, that was 86 segments. So that's more than one segment every day about trans people, fear-mongering about trans people, kindling the fires of stochastic terrorism against trans people. Sheltering yourself from this stuff doesn't keep you safe. It's actually the opposite. You have to know about this shit. If you are a minority, you have to know how people perceive you, how the majority wants to hurt you. And I mean, even then, it still doesn't keep you safe. I'm worried that some people might be watching this and think, like, you shouldn't be tearing up and talking about this vulnerable stuff. You're making trans people seem weak. We should try to seem strong. But no, I think this vulnerability is a kind of strength, actually. And I need people to see and hear and understand what I'm saying now, which is that trans people are not safe and we need help. If you are a part of the online spaces that I'm a part of, you probably have already heard that it's a good idea to be getting your, keeping your passport up to date, because there's a possibility that we're gonna have to leave. Like, if we can, we need to put money aside and we need to have passports ready so we can get the fuck out of the country, because it's probably not gonna be safe in the US for very much longer. I don't know where it's gonna be safe. Something that I've probably mentioned before is that I had a suicide attempt in 2015, December. I was 23, 7 years ago, and I'm doing a lot better now. But one of the things that made me more suicidal was I had an abortion when I was 19, and the abortion was fine. No regrets. It was one of the best decisions I'd ever made in my life, and I still fucking stand by that. There was never a moment that I doubted that decision. But the thing that made me suicidal, I guess, I mean, hell, there were a whole lot of other things, but one of the things that pushed me closer to that decision was the Planned Parenthood shooting in Colorado Springs in 2015, the month before I attempted suicide. It really hurt knowing how much people hated me and how willing they were to hurt people like me and how willing they were to remove the autonomy of people like me. And I'm disgusted. Living in a world that is actively hostile to your existence is very painful. It's very difficult and isolating. It fills me with a type of disgust that is almost impossible to cope with sometimes. I'm so angry that this is happening to people like me. It should not be happening to anyone. The thing that makes me feel a little bit better, though, is that this is their swan's song, their final performance. And I think that they know that. They're lashing out because they know that this is the end for them, and we're close to winning. Every day we get a little bit closer to winning, and one day it will be over. And until then, we just have to keep fighting. And sometimes fighting doesn't feel like or look like enough, and it feels so small. Sometimes it's sending strongly worded emails, and it seems like something that wouldn't really matter. And that ultimately, I think it results in hopelessness for a whole lot of people, for most minorities. Something that I've had to do this year is my high school was illegally holding a policy that prevented trans people from amending their high school diplomas. You know, if you give a high school diploma to an employer or someone else and it has someone else's name on it, they might not believe that it's yours, or you're just automatically outed as trans. And it's a FERPA violation. Your high school cannot decline your request for you to change your name if you're a trans person. And so I and people from my community emailed my high school and basically had to threaten them until they changed their illegal policy. Another thing that I had to do this year is I had my hysterectomy just a few months ago, and I experienced transphobic mistreatment at the hands of some of the staff members. And it got pretty bad, actually. I'm kind of a passive person, and I don't like kicking up a fuss, but it got to a point where I had to make some emails, and it actually turned out good. I was taken seriously, and the staff is now doing trainings to learn how to better treat trans patients. And I had to experience mistreatment in a very vulnerable moment while I was having a major surgery, but I've maybe made a good small change for other trans people who might be going to the same hospital as me. And it seems small, right? Like it really never feels like enough, but this is what we do. This is what we have to do. And it sucks. It's exhausting. It's stressful. You know, sending an email to my old high school, sending an email to the hospital, it doesn't stop trans people from being shot. I know that. But maybe it'll help some of the trans people in my state, people who went to my school, people who go to my hospital. Maybe they'll be emboldened. Maybe they'll be more capable because of the small changes that I was able to help make. I don't know. I do know that it feels even worse to do nothing. And so even though it's small, like, do something. Yeah.